Hi, this is Maria Williams. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own diffuser out of cardboard to create these partially embossed cards. They were stamped with the All About Everything stamp set that was a bonus with the April 2016 paper pumpkin. Because I like to recycle, I decided to use the cardboard that comes at the back of the designer series paper packs, the 12 by 12. You could also use the 6 by 6 piece that comes with the smaller paper pads. And I find that the thinlits cut just fine through this cardboard. So I cut 4 pieces to 5.5 by 4.25. Took the first piece, used a thinlit to cut a circle where I wanted it. And then I used that first piece as a template for the second piece. I just put it underneath and then nestled the thinlit inside of the circle so that the circles would all be in exactly the same place, and then run it through my Big Shot again. I did the same thing for the other 3 pieces, and then I glued all the pieces together just with some regular, I think I used the 2-way glue, and made sure that all the pieces were really well lined up. So I ended up with a piece that's about 3/16 of an inch thick, and it gives me just enough thickness to create pressure so that the embossing folder can emboss. So here again is the first card that I created, and as you can see, this circle here is not embossed. So here I'm using the large polka dot embossing folder. I'm putting my paper inside and I'm lining it up because I do want my dots to be symmetrical on the panel. And then I'm going to take my template, line it up with the panel that is inside the embossing folder so I can make sure that the circle is going to be in the middle of my panel. And then I'm just going to use one of the clear cutting plates, and then I'm going to run it all through. And as you can see, I've gotten a good impression all over the panel except in that circle. Now I'm going to use the Elegant Dots embossing folder and show it to you one more time. Again, I'm putting my paper inside my embossing folder, and then I'm lining it up, then I'm taking the template and I'm placing it underneath the embossing folder directly on the multi-purpose platform. And again, you could use your magnetic platform for this too, since they're the same thickness, and just one clear plate. And I'm running it through the Big Shot. And here's what that looks like. I know it's a little bit hard to see, especially when I don't hold it in the middle of the camera, but you can see it there. For the first card I made, I used my favorite yellow, which is Daffodil Delight and Hello Honey. And for the next 2 cards, I'm going to use Pink Pirouette and Melon Mambo on one of them. And for the other one, I'm just going to use one color, which is Tempting Turquoise. I've marked my blocks with a little dot so that I can easily know how to hold the block and stamp the images lined up. So I find it easier to use the darker color first. So I'm taking the Melon Mambo with the smaller flower part and just kind of eyeballing where it needs to go. And now I'm taking the Pink Pirouette, inking up my stamp, and since I have that dot, it's easy to line it up. And I'm just going to stamp it right over the top. Now I realize after I stamp the Pink Pirouette that this is not the color combo I wanted. So I flipped the paper over and start again. And what I had wanted to do was to stamp off the Melon Mambo. And so since I had already stamped the Melon Mambo once, I can just go ahead and stamp it now and then stamp the Pink Pirouette on top. Now I'm going to take the leaf from the stamp set and some Pear Pizzazz ink, and I'm going to stamp a wreath of sorts around the circle that is not embossed. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this and using the non-embossed area as a guide. And I'm stamping until I get pretty close to the flower. Now, if I were to stamp 2 more leaves, one on either side, I would be stamping over the flower. So I went ahead and grabbed my mask and put it right over the flower. And as you can see, there's a little bit of pink poking out from underneath the mask. And the reason is that if I make my mask a little bit smaller than the outline of the flower, when I stamp, the green will be right up against the pink. Because the mask is a little bit raised, if I put it right on the edge of the flower, when I stamp, I'll have a little white gap. So I'm just continuing with the leaves, and then I'm just going to remove my mask. And I did realize that my circle wasn't quite a circle. I think I got a little carried away trying to get the leaves close to the flower and ended up making my circle a little bit too small on that side. But I'm going to leave it for now and take some black archival ink and stamp the sentiment. I'm going with a happy birthday for this card. And I'm just lining it up with the top of the card. I love this black archival ink. It stamps so clearly. And then I'm going to take the last little piece from the stamp set that is meant to go in the middle of the flower, ink it up with Pear Pizzazz, and stamp that too. And that's all the stamping that I'm going to do on this card. For the next card, I'm taking the panel that I embossed with the Elegant Dots embossing folder. Since I'm using the same color for both of these stamps, you're not going to see a huge variation in color, but you will see a little bit of variation right where the two stamps come together. If you wanted a bigger variation in the color, you could stamp off the larger stamp to get a lighter shade. I'm going to make sure that my ink is dry, put my mask back on top, and then go ahead and stamp just a couple of leaves on either side of the flower with the same leaf stamp and the Pear Pizzazz ink. And to finish off the stamping, I'm going to stamp the Happy Birthday sentiment in the black archival ink and the center of the flower in the Pear Pizzazz ink. So here are my two stamped panels. Now I'm going to move on to assembly. I've gone ahead and prepared the card bases and the mats for my two cards. The first one is going to be matted onto black and then attached to a Temptin Turquoise card base. And the first thing I'm going to do is put a generous coat of clear Wink of Stella on the flower and just use some snail to attach the mat to the card base and then the front panel onto the mat. And to finish off, I'm going to use some sequins. What a surprise, right? I just seem to love this assortment, and unfortunately I had a little bit of trouble with my glue. It kind of exploded onto my panel. So I'm taking two pieces of scrap paper and I'm just sort of placing the paper underneath the blob of glue as best I can, and then I'm going to put a sequin right over the glue that's left over, and it looks like it will cover pretty well. Accidents do happen, and there's my mess. I will deal with that a little later. But I'm going to use this technique. I'm just going to take the sequins and just kind of put them on the glue and get a little bit on there, which is actually a pretty good technique. I might use this in the future where I put a little bit of glue onto a piece of paper and then just take the sequins with the tweezers and just get a little bit of glue on the back and then place them on the card. Now my second card, I'm going to do the same thing, attach the mat to the card base and then the front panel to the mat. And I ended up not being totally happy with the wreath since it was a little bit uneven on the left side. So I've decided to go ahead and add the Wink of Stella first. And this time I'm putting it in the center of the flower as well. And then I'm taking two lengths of black and white twine and doing a freestanding bow. That's sort of I think they call it the bunny ear technique, where you basically create two loops and then do a simple knot and you've got your freestanding bow. And this time I'm going to use a little bit of crystal effects. I've actually bought a fine tip little bottle that I keep my crystal effects in. I was having a little bit of trouble with clogging with my large bottle, plus I figured it would last a little bit longer if I work from a smaller bottle. And then I'm going to add some gold sequins this time, and I'm going to use the same crystal effects to glue those down. So here are the three cards that I created using the partial embossing technique and the All About Everything stamp set that came with this month's paper pumpkin. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like more details, please visit my blog at mariascardsandmore.com. Thanks for watching.